Welcome to today's webinar. I'm very excited to have Amanda Reed join me today. We're going to talk about increasing the accuracy of alternative investment decisions using the Trellis platform, but also with our integration with CrowdSmart and how it can help benefit from there. I'm going to end our slideshow and come back to us. So Amanda Reed's the CEO of CrowdSmart, which is a SaaS software company that provides collective intelligence solutions for business. CrowdSmart's integrated into the Trellis investment platform to enable members of the Trellis community to engage with each other and access a super intelligence of refined group insights as part of their due diligence on the investment opportunities. Amanda has many years of experience investing in the use of technologies to increase investment accuracy. She previously managed the Long Horizon Innovation Team for GIC, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Singapore, and prior to that was a successful early stage investor for 15 years, managing a $500 million portfolio of companies. She started her career as a repeat startup entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, leading sales and marketing in multiple software companies, including an IPO with CrowdSmart co-founder Tom Kelleher. Tom's a long-standing thought leader in the field of AI and how it can be used to amplify human intelligence. And I'm going to add, she is a Dartmouth graduate and a great rugby player. We did some great bonding when we first met, talking about both of our days playing rugby in college.
That's true. Thankfully, not against each other.
Yeah, I'm afraid you would have kicked my butt playing.
I don't know about that. Now the personal laundry's coming out. Now people who saw me around a keg in college are going to say, "Wait a second."
Oh, this is great. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Oh, great to be here. Thank you, Dennis. We're very excited about our partnership with Trellis, and so glad to go into some more detail about it.
Well, I'm really excited. We've been working with CrowdSmart as both companies really have grown and built. And I think bringing this artificial intelligence, machine learning solution into the private investment process is something that's going to really revolutionize alternative investing as we go into the future. Let me ask you a question. You've been focused on innovation technologies for quite a while. How'd you get involved with CrowdSmart? You've got such a long and successful storied background. How'd you end up where you are today?
So as you mentioned, Tom Kaler, and Kim Palese and Marcus Garris, the founding team at CrowdSmart. Tom and I had worked together many years ago in a company that was a spin out from Apple Computer that went public. And as they, teach you when you're on the business side of technology, find the really smart teams who are building great technology and get in front of them, right? So I've been very fortunate to work with some brilliant technologists, and Tom and Kim and Marcus are certainly at the top of that list. I was managing innovation for GIC, the Long Horizon team, as you mentioned, and Tom reached out to me not long after I left that position and started describing CrowdSmart to me. And I immediately started finishing his sentences because as part of our innovation priorities at the Sovereign Wealth Fund, we were looking at opportunities for how to increase the accuracy and performance of investment decisions in alternative assets, and also how to remove human bias from all aspects of investment decision making. And as soon as Tom started talking, I started saying, "Yep, I got it. Yep, where have you been?" Right? We had at least two major initiatives we were running where we were looking for the type of collective intelligence technology that CrowdSmart was producing at that time. And we had an opportunity to build it. And I said, I really don't think we should try to do this on our own. And then sure enough, CrowdSmart became apparent to me. And I was so excited that I advised the company for the better part of almost a year. And then was very fortunate when Tom invited me to join as the CEO position he was holding down. So now he's our chief scientist. And he gets to focus just on the technology and laugh just a little bit when I get pulled into all the budget meetings and the fundraising and all the fun stuff.
So he got to slide into the fun role.
Yeah, he totally is having the time of his life, right? And I'm out there slaying dragons to make sure the technology realizes its full potential. Let's put it that way.
That's great. So the term that we've been using is talking about collective intelligence.
Right.
But what is that term? What does that mean to you, and how do you define it?
Right. Collective intelligence is a principle that's been around for many years. And I'm finding when I talk to our customers, more and more of them are really familiar with it. But essentially, it's built on the premise that the greater number of people that you involve, and that there are experts who are presumably really good at making forecasts or decisions or investment decisions. But the science has shown that working with a larger group of people, that the crowd will outperform the individual, and that there's tremendous value and merit in these the synthesis of the wisdom of the crowds. And so over the years, obviously, crowds and crowdsourcing and crowd ideas have come up in business steadily for the past decade or more as the science has become more evident. There was a very well-known book called Super Forecasters, which we had read when I was at GIC, looking at the idea of tapping into the expertise of people around the world to do things like out forecast the presumed pundits. And what's exciting about what the team has done at CrowdSmart is an evolution beyond collective intelligence to talk really about collective reasoning, which is not just about collecting data points from broad numbers of people where the rules of numbers really apply, but engaging those individuals in a collective reasoning process where they're able to not only tell you what they think, but engage with other people's reasons or ideas or opinions or feedback on a topic, and help the group self-refine what's important to them as a group. What are the most significant issues? And so you do that not just by weighing in, but by engaging in an anonymous interplay with other people's ideas. So it creates this meritocracy of ideas and opinions, and it helps the individual who's trying to understand what to do or what kind of decision to make. It helps that individual or that team understand at a broad basis from a diverse group of people what's the most important issues for them. As we say at CrowdSmart, we help people discover what's important, imagine what's possible, and predict what will work, right? And so applied in Trellis, we're helping people bring the power of collective intelligence, or as we call it, collective reasoning, to bear as they're making these really important decisions in alternative assets, which often have patchy amounts of known things. They're not like public equities or other things where the details are all there, right? Alternative investments always require a bit of a leap of faith. And sometimes the existing data is not really everything you want to know. And so using collective intelligence can close that confidence gap between the stated facts about what's happening and tap into that insight and wisdom of other people, in our case on the Trellis platform, who can really synthesize and add that additional value and increase your accuracy, increase your confidence about making those decisions. I think that's what's really exciting about our partnership is you've got such a high quality crowd of people that you're going to be aggregating on Trellis. And we've got this ability to help take that wisdom that they've grown over their careers and help them work with each other to synthesize that into these metrics, both qualitative and quantitative, that can help people make better decisions.
So I know for me personally, someone who's made a handful of private investment decisions and has listened to far more pitches than I can imagine. One of my challenges, I think I fall in love with everything I hear. Someone who's a great presenter. Right. I love the pitch. Wow, this is a fantastic idea. Wow, this is great. Move forward from there. I need that, personal investment committee to help me point out the things that I'm not seeing, when I miss the trees through the forest.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
On all of that.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what CrowdSmart is providing and helping those individual investors create a community that becomes their investment committee. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to say that everybody understands the danger of bias when they're making decisions. And when you're making decisions on an investment, that bias adds up to real dollars, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and the bigger the investment, the more you're wagering on your personal perspective. Sometimes, people will say, oh, it's like art, like I know it when I see it. But even when you have a gut reaction to a deal, it's always beneficial to understand, if you can, what other people think. And as I like to say, people don't make decisions in small groups because they think it's better. They make decisions in small groups because larger groups are unwieldy. And what CrowdSmart does is break down the tax of really soliciting and understanding the perspectives of more people, because it helps that group self-refine their information into this easy to understand set of metrics, both the narrative and the data. We convert qualitative feedback into quantitative output and then give you the explanation about what are the reasons for the different scores. That kind of that CrowdSmart magic, as we like to describe it, is that additional data that has been subject to a significant reduction in bias, because remember, people are interacting with each other's ideas anonymously. So you're getting that bias against what you mentioned, which is you like what you saw most recently. That's recency bias.
Yeah.
Right. I worked in a partnership for 15 years, and we would often say, oh, well, Bob really knows his stuff in this sector, and if he likes it, that must be the thing to do. Right. And there's a bias to perceived expertise. In organizations, there's often bias to authority. Well, that's the SVP. I should agree with that. Or this is a first-year analyst. They couldn't possibly have any insights that are, worth understanding. It can be even more subtle bias against gender, around culture, around, any kind of thing that we bring in, both consciously and subconsciously. And so one of the benefits of interacting anonymously with other people's ideas as they express them in a CrowdSmart session, like let's say someone's evaluating a deal on Trellis, and I'm looking at these ideas that have been put forward about the team, right? I'm reacting to the merit of the idea about the team and not where it came from. And that's an important way of really drilling into the accuracy of getting to the net, what the group really thinks, and not cluttering it with a lot of the biases that come up when you're sitting across a conference room table, for example.
It's anonymous. So
yes,
you're providing your evaluation,
right.
And you provide your own evaluation, and then you rank other people's.
Right. Yes.
So
in a good example, so let's go through an example. So let's say that you're in the Trellis platform and you see a company that you're excited about, and you want to know what the group, you're really assembling an amazing collection of people in Trellis. And I think I'm really interested in not only putting in what I think, but understanding really what they think, right? And so then I get the benefit of this group insight into the deal. And so I might be looking at a question like, what do you think about the management team? Or what do you think about the addressable market? Or what do you think about the technology? We have a whole framework that we've built out with you that's really classic around investment decisions, team, market, product, financing risk, investment risk. And so when I'm asking you a question about that, you're going to say, I really like this team. I really think they've got the great background. And then I might say, I also really think the CEO came from a level of experience that really informs, his or her strengths to build a company of this size. I see they've done that before. I'm going to weigh in with things that often I would say, these are the things that get shared around a partnership table, right? But you're doing it on a much broader scale. And after you've submitted your ideas, then you're shown other people's ideas or other people's feedback. And I can't tell where those ideas come from. And then the CrowdSmart asks me to engage with their ideas and drag and drop them into a ranked order of how I feel about them. And then go back and look and say, well, maybe, that actually prompts something else I want to say. CrowdSmart is generative of new ideas and new feedback. And what we find is when you've got investors from different backgrounds and investors from different generations, there's always something to learn. Even the most wizened, grizzled, experienced investor can learn something from the fresh perspective of a new generation or someone from a completely different industry saying, hey, what about this? Right. And so CrowdSmart gives you the opportunity to learn while you're working on the platform. And investment groups that we've worked with in the past have said, I was really engaged, right, by understanding, reading other people. It's like social media. I want to read what other people's comments are.
Yeah.
Right. And as I engage, every time I engage with other people's reasons, I'm teaching the learning algorithms in CrowdSmart. I'm teaching the AI about not only what's important to me, but I'm teaching it what the other people said that's resonating with the group. And so the AI is constantly testing by uplifting diverse ideas, making sure that it's showing me people's ideas that are different from mine, that are filling out this kind of vector space of ideas, and also testing for alignment, because it's really working to see what is important to the group. What are the most significant things to be said about each one of these topics? And by doing both of those things concurrently, it's building this mini expert system of the discussion on this company. And that is a much better artifact of the discussion about the business than a text-driven investment memo, for an example. Investment memos, when you write them up, if you're working in a fund, are sort of a snapshot in time. CrowdSmart creates this collective knowledge model about the group's inputs on this deal, and it's persistent, forever. So you can always query it and say, what were we thinking at the time? What investment criteria are we using? But what's coming up in the conversation that maybe wasn't an explicit question, but is really thematic? Everybody's talking about blank. We didn't ask about it, but conversationally it's coming up. What about that? What does that mean to my decision?
So I think the bias part you talked about a little bit there, and how you brought that all together. We've talked about it as the collective, but I think it's also key. This can be used in a private group as well. So
yes,
an investment committee themselves. And
sure.
I hadn't thought about this till you said it. One of the interesting things
after all this time.
Yeah. Well, but one of the interesting things on an investment committee is generally you're a team. You work together.
Right.
Maybe partners.
Right.
Who are all bringing things and support. And that bias always weighs into whether it's subconscious or not. I think there's always a bias there. So the nice thing is to be able to opine through CrowdSmart, see the other team members' opinions, not know who they are, rank them, score them, and then sit down at an investment committee for the first time with a baseline of conversation. Here's the score, here's the analysis, here's what we're thinking. And one, I think it'll help so much in maintaining and saving relationships.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yeah.
But two, also in making quicker decisions, because a lot of times you don't want to pick the big thing, so you pick small little things that are concern you, because the big thing might impact someone's feelings or hurt the relationship, and now you go on and argue over little things that really don't matter because it's that one big thing that we can address.
Yes. I mean, I think even if I'm not interested in knowing what a variety of other experts think, right? I'm really interested. I mean, let's talk about partner meetings, right? I mean, they are, and I worked in what I thought, and I still think is a super functional fund, and they range from slightly dysfunctional to massively dysfunctional, right? But there's always politics involved. There's always bias involved, and people are usually aware of it, right? And that's how you learn how to navigate your partnership. But oftentimes what's significant to using CrowdSmart in a smaller group is not only making sure that you're really focusing in on the business issues and not just which of your partners said what, right? It really dials people in to the core business issues. And so when CrowdSmart was used previously in early stage investing, it significantly reduced the bias of the number of women and minority companies that were recommended for investment. Not because anybody in the room would have said, oh, I clearly have a bias, but because it helps focus people in on the merit of the ideas and the merit of the business at hand. We didn't mask, which CEOs were women or minorities. It wasn't something where that was hidden. It's just I guess it's the magic of CrowdSmart again, right? When you're bringing people together and you're focusing on capturing people's ideas in any group from say 8 or 10 or a dozen people is where it really has merit. It not only captures a record of how you made the decision, but it helps you just focus in on the nuts and bolts of the decision. And it pulls a lot of that, both conscious and unconscious, kind of overhead. So as you pointed out, it also helps people make decisions more quickly because it provides this center point for the conversation rather than from one partner meeting to the next partner meeting to the next partner meeting. There's this undercurrent of the conversation running, whether you were all on a Zoom call or all in the same room or not. You've got this open framework where you're actively discussing the deal, and that runs asynchronously. It's a persistent, ongoing process. For as long as you want to leave the conversation open, that's as long as you can talk about it.
And so as you add that part there, as long as we leave it open. So in the beautiful part with this integration is, I've got 10 people looking at the deal that opine. We get an initial assessment,
right?
But now it goes from 10 to 20 to 50 to 100.
Right.
And now we're really getting a much larger
base. For sure. Yes.
And do you tend to see significant changes as that audience expands, or?
Yeah, you can. I think certainly you will, especially the more diverse the audience, the more accurate the feedback that you get, and the higher the numbers. I think there's a point at which the numbers start to settle out when you hit that point in the curve. But a sweet spot for CrowdSmart is it captures a record of the thought and makes sure that you're creating an honest interplay of ideas with groups in the 8, 10, 12 frame. it starts to pick up speed around the 15 to 20 people mark. And it really excels as you get into larger groups, because remember that there's no tax to having more people in a CrowdSmart conversation, because if their ideas aren't relevant, they kind of sink to the bottom of the tank. But if they have even one outlier idea, one breakthrough idea, one really critical point, there's an immediate opportunity for that idea to get upwelled in the process and become significant, influence other people, spark other people's imaginations about what they think about the deal. And so you get this tremendous benefit from casting a wide net that previously would have just been unwieldy. You know, we have, as our partnership, we used to have a CIO advisory board. And so when we would be looking at a deal, I might call up one or two of these people and say, you know, what do you think? I called it the smell the milk conversation. Like, what do you think? And we would get one or two data points. But imagine that you could take a group like a CIO advisory board for your fund. But in this case, you're in the Trellis platform, right? So you've got all of these other investors and advisors, and you can quickly get their read at scale really rapidly. That's just not a possible amount of data to collect. It just wasn't feasible.
Yeah. So I think that also brings value to the company, the issuer, that is trying to raise capital.
Yes.
You know, as someone, you know, having raised capital in the past and get a lot of no's, just expect it. You
just
expect
no. Yeah. We don't do deals on days that end in Y, right?
Yeah. Well, in a lot of, usually you get the, I don't want to hurt your feelings. It just doesn't fit our investment strategy or style.
Something vague.
Vague, or go from there. But are there specifics? Is there something wrong with my pitch?
Right.
Am I not getting the message across? So if I start to see these results and scores come back,
right,
you know, maybe I can change my story. I can enhance it. I can provide more information.
Yes. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful in that regard. I mean, having been a VC for many years, you master the art of the soft pass, right? Which is, well, you know, and you're careful, because the more specific you are, especially if it's a really personal issue about the person's skills or their team or who knows what, you know, you want to make sure that they bring you their next idea, because you don't want to offend them personally, even if you're passing on the deal. One of the tremendous contributions of CrowdSmart to society is this capture of ground truths. You know, in as much as the group that you have pitched, the group that's in the Trellis engagement, or the group that's on any CrowdSmart instance, represents a cross section of a larger market, right? There's a highly predictive aspect to the feedback that you get in CrowdSmart and the scores that you get on CrowdSmart as a proxy for a larger market. It is a remarkably complex technology that has really been subsumed under a really easy to use interface. And from that perspective, you're really able to get this feedback that normally wouldn't be given to an issuer and say, hey, you know, we're concerned about your ability to break into the XYZ market. This many people thought about that. This issue was really highly important to the group. Because remember, CrowdSmart isn't just delivering a popularity contest. It's running this complicated set of algorithms to discern what's important to the group and uncover new ideas and possibilities. That is gold to an issuing company. And no individual investor has to worry about being singled out as the bad guy, you know, for sort of speaking truth to, hey, this is what people thought. I mean, it's a tremendous opportunity for companies to internalize this, you know, take what serves them, leave what doesn't, and get better, not only at their ability to raise money, but their ability to be successful as a business.
That's great. I know we focus primarily, and you know, the conversation is about alternative investing, private investments. Right. But you know, what other types of decision making does CrowdSmart help in? It doesn't seem like it's exclusive to this use case.
No, it isn't. No, CrowdSmart was born in the investment market, which is why we've got, you know, a longstanding relationship with you, and we're so excited about supporting what you're doing at Trellis. Since our origins in supporting investment decisions, we've widened our scope to include a lot of different types of complex decisions, really, that only humans can make. Because remember that the AI in CrowdSmart is not making a decision. It's not driving your car, right?
It's a really good point to make there.
Right. It is not saying, do this, don't do that. It is taking the collective intelligence of the group and bringing it into sharp focus so that you, the investor, you, the investment committee, can say, hey, here's the CrowdSmart feedback. Here's the CrowdSmart score. Here's the top issues. Here's the top reasons. We're going to incorporate this into our decision process. And certainly that same opportunity applies inside large organizations for things like strategic planning, right? Because remember, I mentioned that one of the things that happens when you're in a CrowdSmart session is that you're learning by engaging with other people's feedback and other people's ideas. And so one of the benefits of using CrowdSmart inside an organization is that it helps build alignment across a team. So in a recent example, we worked with a very large company that had just recently been a private equity roll-up. And in fact, private equity is one of the great use cases for CrowdSmart because of the need to build operational efficiency, post-investment.
Yep.
So in this case, a private equity firm had rolled up a large number of companies, and they were all trying to come together on how they were going to move forward. And not surprisingly, after Zoom call, there were still some sharp elbows and some differences of opinion. And so they decided to run a CrowdSmart session in advance of an offsite and really just have everybody talk about what was important to them and react to each other's answers. They were able to build alignment across a 25-person team and identify the 4 top issues that were going to be obstructing their path to making their 2022 plan in 5 days. So when they appeared at their offsite, not only were they aligned, right, but they then went through the results and they could see their own reasons and how they did. They could see everybody engaging with and what people felt was the most important thing. And everybody's kind of shoulders drop a little bit when you're like, okay, I know I've been heard. I know I've had a chance to engage with other people's ideas, and I'm willing to accept this kind of outcome because I know I wasn't subject to, I was sitting at the wrong end of the table. I was not, I was sick that day. I had 5 days to get my input in. So it not only kind of invokes a pay attention mindset, right? But it also provides this venue for people to know that they've been able to get their point across. And it reduces passive aggressiveness in the sense of feeling resistance to whatever the prevailing decision is. So strategic planning is something where you're able to identify what are the issues and then how can we address them? And then, okay, let's identify specific tactics. And then after you've rolled something out, okay, how is that going, right? Is what we thought we should do actually working? Yeah. All of those are examples of why CrowdSmart in a corporate environment is a subscription service because it is used repeatedly. And it's designed to be used by any business leader, not just a vice president, but a director, a senior director. Anyone can spin up a CrowdSmart session to help them collect that insight and engage their team, whether that team is, frontline employees or a cross-departmental team, or even break through sort of the corporate barrier and engage customers to have them help co-create products and services that they want to see in the market. There's polling technology is really out of date, and CrowdSmart takes more of a social media informed stance, which is tell me what you think. I'm going to show you what other people think. I'm going to help you understand what other people think about what you think. And in the end, I'm going to be able to recognize you for your contribution because I can track your influence on the crowd over time. And I know I should invite you, Dennis, next time because, man, you were really high contribution on this. That opens up a whole new way to value people in the organization around their value of their contribution, the value of their ideas, their influence on their peers. That's a big part of the future of work and in addressing the Great Resignation.
Some excellent information there. and it has my mind racing going back to the investment world. So,
right.
So it sounds like if I am, on Trellis platform as an investor looking at deal flow that's coming in on a regular basis, as I start to give opinions, and if my opinions are ranked higher by others, in a sense, I almost become an unidentified, an anonymous smart influence.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. But when you talk about, people who are really sitting there thinking deeply about the future of work, right? Identifying influencers in your organization is a big part of this conversation. Again, we all need to look at the impact of what social media has had on all of us as employees, on all of us as customers. This feeling of being able to just say what I think and people building social significance by their opinion, by curating views, right? I mean, the rise of social influencers easily transfers over to who are the influencers in your organization. What's exciting about CrowdSmart is it helps you identify expertise, not only based on what someone explicitly says they're good at or what their resume says that they did before, but on a peer reviewed basis, right? Because if you're weighing in on a conversation and you're saying, I think X, Y, and Z, and your reasons really resonate with the rest of the crowd, and they start to become the rallying point around what the group believes is important, then I'm going to say, wow, Dennis really knows a lot more about X, Y, and Z. And if I see you chiming in on session after session after session, I can build this longitudinal view of you that augments what I already am managing in my human capital management platform. And I can say to the person who wants to put together the next query into the organization, you know what, I recommend Dennis for that conversation because he brings this perspective. So then you start to be able to curate who you invite based on the peer-reviewed capabilities that these people have demonstrated by your use of CrowdSmart throughout the organization.
And then that even becomes a greater value to an issuer. Hey, what if I could run it through these people early?
Right.
Start with a overall view,
yes.
report CrowdSmart score,
right.
and then as I'm pushing it out to
yes.
potential investors, hey, look, we already started off with
right.
8.5 or 9.2 from this expert group.
Right.
Gives a little more credibility to the investment side, or I guess just on the other side, before I go out to market, wait a minute, I got a 5.3.
Right.
Something's not right here.
Right.
Let's go back and revise.
Right.
Is it my business model? Is it my pitch? Is it
right.
Presentation? Or, hey, we better go back and scrap it and start over.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you can use CrowdSmart internally to say, okay, here's the feedback. Like, what do we think we should do with that?
Yeah.
And so any group that you want to really engage on, we use CrowdSmart internally at CrowdSmart, not surprisingly. We have loaded ourselves up on the Trellis platform so you can evaluate CrowdSmart using CrowdSmart, right? We're eating our own dog food, as they say. But remember that, yes, you can preview, how would this fly if we do X, Y, and Z, and then use CrowdSmart internally or use CrowdSmart with your customers to refine that customer company relationship. I think if you step back and think broadly about where companies are going, they're dealing with two big issues, right? The great resignation, not only retaining the talent that they've got, but attracting new people to the company. And then this turmoil in their customer relationships caused by supply chain issues. You don't even have enough staff to explain to your customers why they're not getting what you were supposed to send them, right? Or why you have to raise the price. All of those are opportunities to bring people in closer. I think that the future is not going to be about these sort of 1950s styles, kind of autocratic leadership. We've seen people demand that people come back to the office, and they're just like, nuts to you, pal, right? I'm going to vote with my feet. So CrowdSmart is an opportunity to say, how can I read the room, right? And take what they think is important and incorporate it into my decision process, because the hero in our story is the person in Trellis making the investment decision, their family office, their wealth management firm, they as investors, like, what does the room think about this? And the opportunity inside an organization is very similar. How do you know what other people know? And then how do you incorporate that into what you decide to do? Because CrowdSmart is fundamentally an intelligence harvesting and refinement platform. And you can trust it because it is sourcing ground truths. People are being more honest. We're pulling out bias, and we're quantifying things so that you can look back and say, what was I thinking at the time? And how can I just get better at making decisions as I go?
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I have one more question, and then just our audience that's watching, if anyone wants to ask any questions, please enter them right into the Q&A session on there, or the chat, whichever is easier for you. So as I'm listening and thinking about this more, we're collecting all of this opinion-based information. When I hear machine learning, AI, think about predictive analytics,
right?
Taking data, sorting through the data, and coming up with a projection of what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
In a sense, we're doing that without big data, without hardcore information, doing it with opinions. But now over time, as we move forward 3, 5, 10 years, and these opinions start to track with performance of companies.
Right.
what's the value there? How do you see that going? Is that part of the business plan, the model for CrowdSmart?
Yes. So when you're a CrowdSmart subscriber, as you go in and build these models, every time you use CrowdSmart, you have access to those models and you can query them like you would query a financial model. So probably my best example of this is we worked with a very large endowment, a university endowment, and the chief investment officer there was very focused, I think inspired perhaps by the Bridgewater Ray Dalio, frame of mind of bringing ever more data-driven decisions to investment principles about how to not only instrument the decisions that the team was making, but make sure that you could have this, back test opportunity to say, not only, so let's assume that this endowment has a defined criteria for how they evaluate deals. One of the things that this person was looking for is how to surface hidden evaluation criteria and identify whether or not those hidden criteria are influencing to the team to be more accurate or less accurate, right? Because you're finding out that you can ask these 5 questions, but it's really this conversation here that's influencing the decision. How do we capture that? How do we either work it into our defined way of thinking about things or work it out because it's really pulling us off course? So this backtest capability is core to really improving decisions over time in any kind of an organization. It's particularly powerful when you've got an investment committee that's repeatedly making decisions with hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars at stake, to be able to look back and say, how can we learn from our past decisions? And how does CrowdSmart, when it's working with your team over time, has the ability to start to emulate your team, right? Because it's watching and learning from your team every time it's being used. So we have some customers who are talking to us who have ridiculous quantities of deal flow, large target investors who get literally hundreds of pitches from funds or direct invests a year. How can it emulate its own investment committee in terms of screening these deals? How can the AI help filter out, hey, based on how you evaluated these other deals, we think you should focus on these.
That's great. I had a question here. Let me just get it up. It says, does the AI make decisions or just inform them?
The AI does not make decisions, right? This is not, the AI playing God in your life or trying to do things, as I said, by anticipating. The AI is harvesting the intelligence of people around you and bringing it with both speed and scale into the sharp focus that you can consume as a human, or you can export into another data analytics product, right? So it is really, when we were managing and working on this project, when I was managing innovation for the Sovereign Wealth Fund, we called it opinions as data, right? This is about taking the structured data, what the company's metrics, the company's sales volumes, the company's market penetration. You're taking the defined data that you already have that's explicit, and you're capturing the human factor, that unique pattern recognition that really only humans can still provide. And you're not only getting that applied to this information, but you're getting it applied at scale and then quantifying that. Now you've got 2 aspects of quantitative data to help you, the knowledge worker, make something that's a more well-informed decision. It's not about the AI saying, do this, do that, or worse yet, making a decision automatically.
So it's taking the human opinions, evaluating, but taking out the flaw with our, as you said, humans can process data that machine learning can't yet, but we also consciously, subconsciously apply biases. It can take those out. So it takes out the flaw in the human.
Right. And keeps the cognitive horsepower.
Yeah.
Right. Because there are pattern recognitions and aspect to human cognition that AI is steadily marching towards, but just isn't there yet. And let's face it, all of us who are professional investors think we're pretty smart, right? I mean, we feel like we've got this gut feel about deals. So I don't want something that says, do this, don't do that, right? I want something that says, how do I take a feel for other, especially in Trellis's context, other really smart people, right, who are professional and experienced and qualified investors, because I know you're screening people coming into Trellis. And how do I say, look, I'll put in what I know, you put in what you know, let's collectively share our insights, and then we can make a better decision about this. And as you said, the issuing company can get really powerful feedback without any character assassination about I never liked Joe Schmo at XYZ fund because he was the one that told me that, my baby was ugly. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
We have another question here that says, I'd like to know more about the power of the group on Trellis.
Oh, well, you should answer that.
I was gonna say together.
We're just lucky to be here. We just got, we're invited to your party, right?
Well, and thank you very much for the question. Part of it, what we built at Trellis is a two-sided marketplace. We're trying to connect those that are raising capital with those that are investing, in really open up what is out there. Historically, high net worth individuals invest in institutional funds, which invest in VCs, which invest in private companies, and take the flow from there. And so these private companies go to VCs, and VCs get bombarded with everything from there. We're trying to open up. We're still not taking anything away from the VCs. We're not taking away anything from the institutions, but we're also allowing these high net worth individuals to have a direct connection through some type of regulated entity, which is their RIA, broker dealer, family office, through these private equity venture capital, and go from there. But as a result, we end up with this community of, as you described it, highly experienced and knowledgeable investors.
Right.
Not just the collective of the entity themselves, but all of the individuals.
Right.
So as we interact with one RIA, we work with their investment committee, but if they have 10, 20, 30, 100 clients on there, suddenly we've got the benefit of the collective knowledge. Now, instead of one committee, 14 committee members and 100 individual investors, and we've turned that one into 114 and bring that power to the whole network.
Right.
And I think that's really the key in bringing together everything that we've done through the partnership.
CrowdSmart is a technology that galvanizes and unlocks, the knowledge in groups of individuals and brings it into sharp focus. And when it's applied in an environment like what you're building at Trellis, it's, super high octane, right? Because you're working with highly qualified and screened investors and people who are both new but have deep levels of expertise, and people who are broad generalists. And I think it's that not only highly curated, but really diverse group of expertise that, as we've said, increases the accuracy of any collective intelligence effort.
Well, that's great. I think we're coming up on the end of our time here. Any closing comments or thoughts from you?
Well, one, I just want to say how much fun it's been to be part of the Trellis platform, and how excited we are about what you're creating. And we are always happy to be associated with a group that's, got so much experience and understands the importance of creating this continuum of value, so that you can not only discover the deals, but share in this collective experience across by using CrowdSmart, that you can feel the presence of other, smart people in the room, right? And improve the accuracy of your decisions by being able to tap into both the community at Trellis and the power of the technology at CrowdSmart. I think it creates kind of a supercharged place to go in and find good places to put money to work in alternative assets. So we're excited for your success and supporting you and your endeavors. Thank you.
This is great, and thank you so much. We get to have these conversations on a regular basis. It's fun to share with the larger group.
It is. Nice to see you, though. Right?
Yeah.
It's been since what, Tuesday?
Yeah, I was going to say. Perfect. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Dennis. Really appreciate it.
Take care.